Good evening, everyone. I welcome you to I'm called the November 6th City Council meeting to order. As a reminder, we continue to have a remote aspect to our meetings, and both staff and members of the public may be participating in tonight's meeting remotely or here with us. The first item of the agenda this evening is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I invite you all to join. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is the nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. We have a couple of items under special business this evening. We're going to start with ID 1373, World Town Planning Day Proclamation, and I invite Councilmember Hunt to come to the podium and invite up the recipients.
I can invite up Community Planning and Development Director Minnie Dollywall, Planning Manager Christian Getz, and Long Range Planning Manager Stephen Padua. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Councilmember Victoria Hunt, and I wanted to start by thanking you for everything you do for the city. Before I was a council member, I also volunteered on our city's Planning Policy Commission and currently chair the Planning Development and Environment Committee. And I know you work hard to do so much for our community, and also wanted to thank you so much for all of your leadership in our land use code overhaul, which we recently completed, also known as Title 18. And so with that, I will read the proclamation. Whereas the International Organization of World Town Planning Day, WTPD, was founded in 1949 to advance public and professional interest in planning both locally and abroad, and to create a special day to recognize and promote the role of planning in creating livable communities. And whereas celebration of WTPD is promoted each year by the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, AICP, and whereas urban planners play a critical role in creating livable, sustainable communities, and we celebrate the valuable contributions sound planning makes to the quality of life in our local communities and all levels of government. And whereas planning provides an opportunity for all community members to be meaningfully involved in making better choices that determine the future of their community. And whereas the celebration of WTPD gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of the Planning Policy Commission and community members who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the city of Issaquah, Washington. And whereas the city of Issaquah wishes to show our appreciation for the many valuable contributions made by dedicated planning professionals in the city of Issaquah, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public service by these professionals. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Mayor Mary Lou Pauley, the city of Issaquah, do recognize November 8th, 2023 to be World Town Planning Day. And present you with this, and if you would like to make some comments, thank you very much.
Thank you, council members, members of the community, and Councilmember Hunt for saying such good things. We all know planning is important, and it's invisible. You don't see the immediate impact. There's no ribbon cutting that happens with planning, but it happens down the road. So, but we've been really fortunate with leadership here, Mayor Pauley's leadership, Wally's leadership, of really keeping the community planning in the front and center of all that we do in the city. So thank you all for your support.
And can we get a picture there? Thank you, Wally. And thank you, guys. Thank you for presenting that, Councilmember Hunt. I know planning is really near and dear to your heart. and we have been doing a lot of it over the last couple of years. The next one, ID 1374, Accounting Day Proclamation. I would like to invite Deputy Council President Hall to present.
Thank you, Mayor Pauly. I am Deputy Council President Hall. And if they are here, Deputy Finance Director Jennifer Rain, Accountant Nicole Pond, and Senior Financial Analyst Brittany Hinsley, come on up. Thank you much for being here. All right. Accounting Day Proclamation. Whereas National Accounting Days is celebrated on the 10th day of every November to recognize the accounting experts that ensure our financial health and stability. And whereas accountability, transparency, and organization are tantamount in municipal government stewardship of taxpayer resources. Accountants in the City of Issaquah's finance team provide responsive, diligent, and accurate service to the City of Issaquah and its community members. And whereas the Finance Department supports Issaquah's services through the development of the budget, accurate financial reporting, audit preparation, monitoring, business tax administration and collection, procurement and accounts payable, utility billing, and payroll. Wow. And whereas the City of Issaquah wishes to show its appreciation for its Finance Department professionals, now therefore Mary Lou Pauly, the Mayor of Issaquah, does recognize November 10th to be Accounting Day in the City of Issaquah, and we invite the entire community to join us in thanking the Issaquah's Finance Department for their service and outstanding contributions. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. Anyone like?
Suppose I will. Well, thank you all for this proclamation on behalf of the Finance Department. We have a great group of accounting professionals and finance professionals that thrive on your support and leadership, and we continue to do that each day. So thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Deputy Council President. I'll come down to, there we go, clapping. I will come down for the last item under special business, which is ID 1375, Issaquah Recycles Day Proclamation. Invite Public Works Director Emily Moon to come up to receive it. Welcome, Emily. November 15th recognizes the 26th Annual America Recycles Day, a nationally recognized day for businesses, government agencies, and individuals to consider the importance of recycling and to commit to reducing waste. And the City of Issaquah seeks to effectively steward our natural environment to ensure a sustainable legacy for future generations. And whereas the City of Issaquah strives to reduce waste, conserve natural resources, prevent pollution, and save energy, these goals are advanced through a robust compost and recycling program. And whereas Issaquah is a leader in demonstrating the next generation of sustainability in the Pacific Northwest and serves as a model for innovation, collaboration, and effectiveness, in large part due to Issaquah's Sustainability Department and Environmental and Regulatory Program. And whereas the City of Issaquah wishes to show appreciation for its Sustainability, Environmental, and Regulatory Program professionals, now therefore I, Mayor Mary Lou Pauly of City of Issaquah, do recognize November 15th, 2023 to be Issaquah Recycle Days in the City of Issaquah, and invite the community to join me in thanking Issaquah's Sustainability and Environmental Department for their service and outstanding contributions. Dr. Moon, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much for the proclamation. I'll just encourage everyone to help us out with our diversion rate. We've been doing better over the last couple of months. We look forward to giving you a full report on that sometime soon, but go Issaquah. Keep putting stuff in the recycle bin.
I just want to thank Director Moon and the whole team over there, because even going through that LEED certification for cities, we know this is an area that we can improve. So we are doing very well, but we can do better. And that's good to know. Thank you, Director. we are going to move into the audience comment portion of the meeting tonight. Members of the public may address the council at this time in person or virtually. And those who signed up in advance to make comments will be called on first. If you are joining us virtually and would like to make comments, please raise your virtual hand or send the host a chat message. If you're on a phone, you can press *3. If you have joined by computer or smartphone, look for the hand icon. And if you're in the room and did not sign up, I will ask for other speakers before we close this portion of the meeting. There's also going to be a public hearing tonight on AB 8553, Public Records Policy and Fee Schedule. So comments on this item should be made under the public hearing occurring later in the meeting. City Clerk, who signed up to speak this evening?
We have at least one person signed up to speak.
Right. So please direct your comments to the whole City Council and not individuals. And while this is not a question and answer session, we will contact you to follow up if needed. When recognized, unmute your microphone for virtual attendees or step up to the lectern in the center of the room if you're here with us. State your name, address, and relationship to the city. Speak clearly and pause frequently, and please limit your comments to 5 minutes. If you are attending virtually and do not respond after your name or phone number, or your connection is lost unexpectedly, the meeting will still need to proceed. Personal attacks, obscene language, derogatory remarks, and disruptive behavior will not be permitted. And public comments, written and verbal, are an important aspect of the public process. The city takes comments seriously, and we thank all those that will be giving us some comments this evening. Who is it that has signed up, City Clerk?
Paul Winterstein?
Great. Welcome, Paul.
I just turned on the speaker. Hey, I'm here. My name is Paul Winterstein. I'm the director of the Issaquah History Museums. And did you know that we have over 40,000 items in our collection? That ranges from like one of the original hand-drawn fire carts from the original volunteer fire department here in Issaquah. We have the Articles of Incorporation for the initial municipal water system that was built here in the late 1800s even. And we have lots of big, long saws. If anybody needs a saw, just let me know. But actually, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to learn more about the collection in a moment, because I'm going to invite you to a open house that we're going to have. But before I get to that details of that invitation, I did want to share just a few words about all of the interactions in the way that the city, your staff, and leadership has been working and interacting with my organization since I started just back in April. Starting with, we have a member of your staff, Juliana DeCruz, who's on our board. Juliana's an excellent, I think, ambassador for the city and a real value add to our organization. So I'm really pleased with her participation. Gilman Town Hall and the Depot have gotten fresh coats of paint over the summer, and we had some new signs that were remade, and the Gilman Town Hall has a new roof, all excellent. And I've been working and coordinating with people from the facilities department, and that's gone really smoothly. I really appreciate the way that I've been able to work with people from that organization. I also been really happy with, as you know, we're going to talk a little bit later on about we're doing an assessment of potentially restarting the trolley as a program. And there's been a lot of interaction with the city in that regard. We got a very early draft of a potential track agreement. That was really good to get in hand early. I went online and entered a C click fix. And boy, everybody was all over that like white on rice. And the issue had to do with, there's a trestle over the East Fork of the Issaquah Creek near Darigold that had a lot of vegetation going over it. We're going to be doing an inspection of that bridge, and so some of that needed to be cleared. And so not only members of Parks, but even someone from the planning department was involved to help us with that. So I'm pretty pleased with the really good collaboration that we've had back and forth, and that's essential, especially for that trolley feasibility. So you can learn more about that feasibility study, about that collection, also what our plans are for Gilman Town Hall, and a lot of other information at an open house that we're going to have at the Depot. Get out your calendars. It's a Thursday, November 16th. Yes, it does coincide with the Old Town meeting that's going to be at the community center. Our open house runs from 7 to 8:30, and I believe in the last half hour of that, we might have a little bit of special programming for a member of our community. More on that information a little bit later. But we're going to have a lot of information stations there about the status of, like I said, our collection, but also about what about our long-term plans for storage with the auto freight building? What about the caboose that sits out there and the Army car? And of course, the trolley program itself. So we're inviting all members of the community, and I really hope that as the city has a lot invested in Issaquah History Museums, and I'd be very happy if members from this group here and also members of staff are all invited to come and learn more about it, meet our staff, meet our board members, and I'd love to get your inputs and reactions of the things that we're doing. So thank you very much.
Thanks for the update. Is there anyone online, City Clerk, that has signed up or raised a hand?
We have a few members of the public with us virtually, but I'm not seeing any indication that they'd like to speak at this time.
I'll come back to the room. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak during public comments? See no hands here. Well, I thank you, Paul, for coming. We, council and mayor, appreciate those updates on the activities and programs and early notification of open house. That is a good idea. As a reminder for those that may be listening, written comments can be submitted anytime to citycouncil@issaquah.gov. And the next item on business our calendar this evening is the consent calendar. So I do not have any remarks on tonight's consent calendar, and I just want to know if there's any committee chairs or chair designees who would like to report on any of the consent calendar items. Not seeing any nods. Okay. The consent calendar was distributed to council in advance, and if authorized, the items on the consent calendar will be considered together and approved by one motion. Have the payables and payroll been reviewed?
They have?
Yes.
Thank you. Does any council member desire to remove any item from the consent calendar and consider it under regular business? Not seeing any. Can we have a motion, Council President?
I move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve as presented. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 7-0. We are now going to move into our next item of business, which is a public hearing, AB 8553, Public Records Policy and Fee Schedule. So I'd like to invite Public Records Analyst Tammy Mueller to make a presentation. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. Let me see if I can figure out how to present. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Tonight it's my pleasure to speak to you about the Public Records Policy and proposed fee schedule. And if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt or wait until the end. So the purpose of this is to conduct a public hearing. Here. No, the screen and screen view, I apologize. Wanted to make sure it wasn't presenting. Sorry, so the purpose of tonight's presentation is to have a public hearing on the proposed fee schedule and policy for public records. At the next meeting on November 20th, we will be presenting a resolution to adopt the public records policy and the public records fee schedule, as well as an ordinance to repeal what will become conflicting and redundant sections in the Issaquah Municipal Code. So for a little background on the public records request policy, this policy will adopt the best practices of the Public Records Act as recommended by the Washington Administrative Code. It will also document the city's most current practices and make, just as a formality, certain information that we have to include and make public. It will include all of that information. And then we'll replace the Issaquah Municipal Code, Title I, Chapter 28. Regarding background of the public records fee schedule, we don't have one, and we haven't for a while. Reasoning for that is that in 2017, it became a requirement to formally adopt a fee schedule, and also to either adopt the very nominal fees that are in the RCWs, or to do your own background, your own cost analysis. And at the time, nobody had really done it, and the RCW fees were very small, and it just didn't make sense to ask people to mail in a check or come in with cash for that, and there was no ability at that time to accept credit card payments. That has changed now. The finance department and IT have been working very hard on getting an electronic payment solution in order, and we expect that will, at least for our end, if approved, we would be able to accept credit card payments starting next year for any records fees. As well as the police are getting ready to start their body-worn camera program, and as part of that, there is an allowable cost recovery for the redaction of that body-worn camera footage for those parties that are not involved in the incident. So like members of the media or next-door neighbors or whoever else might be curious about those videos and want them, we can do a cost recovery method for the large amount of time that it will take to redact those videos. So I think I've already covered this, but the two options for adopting a fee schedule are those default fees, which I will note do not include any of the police-specific fees, like the body-worn camera redaction. You do have to do some sort of a calculation for actual cost for those, which we have done with our cost analysis. But the default fees just cover some of the costs of records, providing copies of records. Or you can do what we've done, which is a study to determine what the actual costs are. So in terms of what we are allowed to charge for, we can charge for hard copies, so like your paper copies, electronic copies, body-worn video redaction, and criminal history records information, which is like a copy of a police report, and then traffic or collision accident reports. We cannot charge, and this is in the Public Records Act, we are not allowed to charge for the staff time that it takes to actually locate records and process the request. So this is just cost recovery for the reproduction of records, and in the case of the body-worn camera video footage, the redaction of that footage. So to give you a bit of an idea of what sort of resources go into processing public records requests, we pulled together some of the data from 2022 for you. For instance, 75% of the city's public records requests are for police records. Another 15% is for permits and land use records, and then the remaining 10% is for everything else. Anything from utility billing to the public works records, other finance records, parks records. It's just the miscellaneous gamut of things. But primarily, the city's records requests are for police records. In terms of who is making these requests, it's primarily individuals by a small margin over organizations, which includes, just businesses and any sort of organization that wants, and these are self-identified. So there's like a drop-down menu and users select their own category that they fall into. The next biggest group after that was law firms, and then just a smattering of others, including anonymous and insurers and just all sorts of others categories that didn't really amount to anything on their own. One trend that, it's not reflected here in this chart, but one trend that we have been noticing over the past 5 years that we've been looking at this data is that the percentage of individuals requesting records is going down and the percentage of organizations is going up for whatever reason. However, the one piece of information that we are lacking is what percentage of those are Issaquah residents or Issaquah businesses. We don't have that information, unfortunately. In terms of estimating how much staff hours and staff costs goes into processing requests, again, this is processing, this isn't necessarily copies. We estimated 5,160 hours collectively throughout the city to process all of the requests last year. It averages out to 3 hours per request. And the average cost is $158. And again, that's an average. So some requests take 15 minutes and they probably cost a minimal amount of money. Some take 80 hours or more and cost substantially more. In terms of our public records request system that we use to accept requests online, to track all of our requests, and then provide those records through a secure portal online where a customer can log in and access and download their records. That cost last year was $17,462, and it is a cost that continues to grow each year. So the approach that we took with the fee schedule was obviously to calculate out as close as we could to the actual cost, which, excuse me, attached was the statement of costs, which I hope was specific enough. I think I may have overdone it. We did make some adjustments to that. For instance, we used an average staff wage so that we had some mechanism to charge flat fees or at least like an expected cost, as opposed to charging the per minute wage of the employee who's actually doing the work. Because at that point, it's like, okay, well, if I do the copies, it's going to be this much. But if I'm gone on the day that, we have the copies ready to make them, then it's my boss who makes them that day, and then your costs go up. I don't think it provides a very good customer experience when you have that variability. So we looked at it, and we looked at what our peers were doing, and so we decided that an average wage would be the most beneficial for us calculating and estimating fees, and then just for transparency reasons. So that worked out to 83 cents per minute for the shared records copying, so like hard copies and scanning and whatnot. But for the IPD specific records, for those fees, we only used IPD staff and calculated an average, which was 80 cents per minute. Where possible, we rounded down and we consolidated fees. For instance, we'll see on the next slide that regardless of the size of paper up to an executive size, which is an 11 by 17 size paper, regardless of if it's color or black and white, we'll be charging 30 cents per page, or it's per side of paper. So a double-sided piece of paper would be 60 cents. And that is comparable, if not cheaper, to commercial businesses in the area which we are required to compare to as part of this analysis. And for it's very rarely requested, but for the large format printing, so like for if somebody wanted us to print off the as-built for their house, we could do that. The bulk of that work went into the first page. It's setting up the printer, it's formatting the document to actually print correctly and to scale on the printer and whatnot. And then after that, you're just babysitting the printer. So we broke those apart to try to make it more fair. And so we calculated out the square foot price per page for that. Digitizing and scanning work, we don't expect to do a lot more in the future because we've been proactively scanning as many of our records as we can get our hands on. But if by chance there is something we need to scan, because the variability of the scanning projects, you just don't know what you're going to get into until it's requested. It could be a bound book, it could be stapled, it could be very old and you got to tape it up before you run it through a scanner. There's so much variability that we decided to just charge that 83 cents average wage per minute up to 2 hours, because at that point it just becomes really expensive to have staff do it, and it would be more cost effective to outsource that work, and then the customer would probably get that faster. So at that point they'd be paying the price of the obviously with their permission if they wanted to move forward with it, of the vendor. There are some options where there's no charge associated with it. Under the Public Records Act, we cannot charge for the inspection of records. So that's not receiving a copy, that's coming in and actually viewing it. Typically, this was with paper records, but we can absolutely have somebody come in and sit at at a computer that's not connected to our networks. We can load the records that they want to see on there, and they can come in and they can view that and get staff support with that as needed. But that would need to be at a city facility. We already have a scheduler online, and we have been using this for about 2 years now. And members of the public can schedule appointments for as little as 30 minutes and up to 2 hours, and we're able to facilitate that. Also, if there is something posted on our website, like like the minutes from this meeting, if we need to disclose that, we can just send them a hyperlink, and there's no charge for that. In terms of electronic records copies, that's where it gets complicated. And so we've tried to break it down a bit and consolidate where possible. we're proposing an electronic record system transmission fee, which is a portion of the cost of the GovQA electronic records system. So each request that is fulfilled through the GovQA system to receive copies of electronic records would be $9 per request, so it's a one-time fee. And then we're proposing that the first 10 records that that are responsive to the request, which honestly covers most requests, it's usually 10 or fewer records, there would be no charge for that. Any additional records beyond the 10th, we worked out and then rounded down to 25 cents per record. And then if the total file size of those records goes above 1 gigabyte, for every gigabyte, because we do have to pay for storage, there's a fee of 10 cents per gigabyte. So to help put it in perspective, I thought an example might help. If a new Issaquah resident, this is a fairly common type of request, a new Issaquah resident, they've just moved in, they want the blueprints for their house. Those are usually very large files, and so we'll just, in this example, say it's over 1 gigabyte. So if they wanted their request if they wanted the copies of those records electronically, they would pay $9 for receiving that through our GovQA portal. There'd be no cost for the electronic records copies because it's under 10. They would pay 10 cents because it's over 1 gigabyte, and so their total fees would be $9.10. Now, all of those costs would, or all of those proposed fees would cover police and any other type of records request, but the next set of fees would only cover police records. So we've already talked briefly about the police body-worn camera footage. For parties not directly involved with the incident that they're requesting the video for, it would be 80 cents per minute spent redacting, which works out to $48 per hour. And then for, we decided to take the same approach with police and collision reports. So we would not charge the parties who are directly involved in the incidents to get copies of those records. But for parties who are requesting copies of those records that were not involved in the incident, they're not representing anybody involved in the incident, it would be $8 per report. And then separate matter is a clearance letter, which Lisa can explain it better than I can, but this is a letter that you request from the police department, and they do their due diligence, they do a background check, they write up a letter, they review it, they notarize it. It's a pretty formal process, and so that worked out to, it was actually, I think, like around $16, but we rounded down to 15. So $15 per letter is what the cost of somebody would pay for that service. Okay, so with regard to a police request, the first version of this example would be like a reporter from the news media is requesting all records related to a specific police case. If there were 30 records in that case file, one of them is going to be a police report. Let's say there's 2 body-worn cameras. It's over 1 gigabyte of files total. I think it's on the conservative side, but let's say that those 2 body-worn camera videos took 5 hours to redact. It'd probably be way more. But the more and more I learn about it, it's pretty involved. So under this example, with everything calculated out, the storage, the cost for the police report, the cost for the redaction, that reporter would owe $262.10. However, if this was somebody who was involved in that incident, they would only pay the top 3 charges, which works out to $14.10. There were a few other charges on the fee schedule that are here, and I don't know if it's really worth going into, but we would propose charging the actual costs for them because we don't know what they're going to be until we actually move forward with providing that service, like mailing records, like how many records? Do we need a box? Do we need an envelope? What do we need to mail it? All those things that you just don't know until you have it already. Regarding requests where we estimate it will cost $50 or more, we are recommending that we charge a 10% deposit up front before we start the work. Once received, we'll start the work, we'll get the records ready, and then when we have them ready to provide, again, these are the records copies. If they want to come and inspect, it's a different matter, but assuming they want copies, they would pay the additional cost at the time the records are ready, and once the full sum is paid for the fees, they would receive the records copies. We are also proposing to pass on the cost of using a credit card to the customer, and we're still working with finance on the details of that. But because the costs are so small, we weren't sure if it made sense to absorb that fee or not. And so we're still working on that, and I know that the council is considering looking into this matter further and looking into a policy regarding this subject. Okay. I wanted to bring you back to those examples and take a look at how they compare with the state default fees only. So in the example with the blueprints, the total cost under the proposed fee schedule was $9.10. Under the state default fees only, it would only be 10 cents. And that's only for the fact that it was over a gigabyte in storage. So the state allowable charge for over a gigabyte of storage is 10 cents. In the case of the police file, because there is no default fee for redaction or for case reports, it would just be 45 cents, which is for the 5 cents for every 4 files, and over a gigabyte, 10 cents for that gigabyte. And the same thing if it was the victim, it would be the same cost regardless, assuming that there's no, that the actual cost for the police body-worn camera redaction footage and dissemination of criminal history information isn't approved. Okay. Regarding what our peers are doing throughout this whole process, I've been checking with our peers because we found out we are not in this alone. Everybody's trying to figure this out right now, especially with body cams going live everywhere. So what we found out is cities of Seattle, Shoreline, and Kennewick have had cost study models adopted previously, and they're continuing with that approach, and they've had good luck with it. City of Bellevue is in the same boat as us. They are doing a cost study, and they're looking into it and figuring out, will this be worth it? Is there support for it? And that was the update the last time I spoke with them. And regarding Kirkland and Redmond, regarding the records portion of a fee schedule, they have adopted the state default fees, and they've had those for probably since 2017. And at this point, they don't plan to change that, but with their body cam policy, they are looking into their own fee studies for that and what to charge for that, especially Redmond, who's had them for a while and has not been charging. They have like the biggest backlog out of anybody. It's really bad. I think there's some other reasons for that, but yeah, they're definitely looking at a cost study now for their body-worn camera program. So the alternatives to adopting the proposed fee schedule, we could adopt the state default fees, which are more restrictive in terms of what they've already pre-calculated for us. They're actually based loosely off of a 2015 City of Seattle cost study. I found out through a lot of research that's a hidden fact. We would recommend that we still adopt the actual costs for police records, whichever direction we go. We could also modify the proposed fee schedule, combine more things, so we could eliminate things, just based off of the feedback that we hear tonight. So I think with that, I will open up the floor to you. If there's any feedback, any questions?
Thanks, Tammy. So for council, the next part of the process is I'll go for questions, but you will not be voting on this until November 20th. So just to make sure that's clear. Questions? Councilmember DeMichelle, and then Councilmember Hunt.
Thanks. There we go. Tammy, you touched on this a little bit, but thank you for the really extensive information you provided for me today. But can you just give us an overview of what all is involved in redacting a body camera video and some of the factors that have to be taken into account through that process?
Sure. I think, unless Chief Swan wants to jump in, to my understanding, based off of what I understand. Oh, yeah. I will turn the floor over to Chief Swan.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Barbara DeMichelle. So a lot that goes into the body-worn cameras. We do have to, when someone puts in a request, we have to give them that footage. Now, when we give them that footage, doesn't mean all the information or all the video that's on there. There's certain things that go into whether there's juveniles in the video themselves, if there's protected parties in those video themselves, in the event that the video is taken into a secure facility like a jail or like into a medical facility. Those different certain types of places also have to have redaction. Also to consider that it's not just one camera that's being looked at. When there's usually an incident, there's multiple cameras. So we have lots of time, effort, and energy that's spent on our staff. Now, part of our the price that we paid for the system that we've got does do a high level of that reduction. Sometimes, like I said, depending on the location, we still provide the footage showing that there is, but the faces may be blurred out. It may be that the location of the actual place, or that we can't show the video at all because there's multiple juveniles in the video. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. It could be that a certain part of the video, like if body cam footage of one of our computer systems happens to be in the video that has information, that's a violation to our access, which is to the company that does our secure system and our computer process. So all of those different things have to be taken in consideration and are things that are redacted.
Want to follow up on that?
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate the long, I think it was 5-page long list of exemptions that are actually set by the state legislature. There is an actual law behind each one of them. So it's my understanding that those would have to be reviewed every time we do a video redaction to make sure that we're compliant with the law on every one of those exemptions. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So it's not just one person that we're, entrusting. There is checks and balances. And our department, Records Division, also works with Tammy very greatly on making sure that we are following all those rules and guidelines for every single redaction that does take place before it's even released.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hunt?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My first question is, you mentioned, I believe, that that we aren't collecting information about if it's Issaquah residents or Issaquah businesses. Would that be possible in the new system to collect that information from people voluntarily?
Under a voluntary basis, we could, but yeah, so under the Public Records Act, we are not allowed to discriminate between requesters. So as long as we're not creating that sort of appearance, that's fine. If it's just another metric, I think it would be good to collect that information.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's helpful to see the breakdown of individuals and businesses. It would be helpful to know if they're Issaquah businesses and individuals, if people are voluntarily providing that. My next question is for the redaction footage. It would be the same cost based on the estimate for time for the video for each person that if multiple people request the same video, it would be the same cost each time. Is that correct?
Potentially. So with regards to the redaction, depending on who's requesting it, depends on what gets redacted. So if the video has already been redacted once, and let's say a news media reporter requests the video, we go through the trouble or the process, sorry, of redacting it. Once we have a copy of that redacted video, if another news media reporter asks for it, we can provide that video. It's already been redacted for the media, and they would get it at no charge. This is a bit of a possible loophole in the system, but because we already have the record prepared, we could release it at no cost to the next person because we've already done the work. However, there is a difference between who requests it, and so the media would be one thing, but if somebody involved in the incident is requesting it, there's certain things that we might not be able to redact. For instance, like the interior of someone's home. Like if the police are coming into my home and I'm requesting that video after the fact, like they don't need to redact my home. I know what my home looks like, but if the media were to request that same video, that would be protected potentially, or certain things in the home, or like, my kids or something. So, but yeah, so that's, I'm not sure how often we'll run into that, but it is a possibility. But typically you need to redact the video different ways for every single person who's requesting it.
Okay, I think for when this comes back, it'd be helpful to know how other cities are dealing with that, especially for these news requests. It seems like, how to make it fair to the second news agency that calls.
It is. Yeah, that was actually, sorry, that was from, I only know that because I went to a training among peers where this was discussed, and there isn't yet a good solution to it yet, but it's worth it continuing to explore.
Okay. Yeah, good. It would be maybe good then to just have that best practices information about how other agencies are dealing with it. And then I'm wondering if we can let people know an estimate of the cost associated with this ahead of time, especially for the body-worn camera footage, because I think that's the highest cost of the things. And the example you gave was $262. I'm wondering if people know they can't pay that, for example, if they might not request it in that event. So, and I see that there's a hand raised.
Chief?
Thanks, yes. I think the tough part in giving an approximation of what that would cost, we can give a base, kind of like the example that's been given. The problem in giving that information is it depends on how many officers are going to be on site, because that means how many cameras that are going to have to be redacted and all the hours of video that are going to have to be gone through based on that number of responding officers and how long each video was if one responds and gets there 2 to 5 minutes after somebody else. So I do agree that it's important information, but it is very difficult to give an exact or an approximation, and so it's just something we'll have to be careful of as well.
Okay, thank you. Those were my questions.
Great. Wow, that was a race. Councilmember Ray, followed by Councilmember Joe.
I think he beat me, but that's okay. A couple of questions. On the fee schedule for police records, I noticed that there's an asterisk at the end of in each of the boxes. It says body-worn camera redaction, party directly involved, asterisk, and then the next one down, body-worn camera redaction, parties not directly involved, asterisk. What's the asterisk for? I don't see a footnote anywhere.
Is it not? Okay. I apologize for that. That is relating to, well, for the police body-worn camera, I believe it's RCW 4256-240, Section 14EI. I've just looked at this one a lot, especially today. That specifies the individuals or groups that are exempt from us from being charged fees for the redaction of body-worn camera footage. So loosely, it's the individuals who were directly involved in it or their legal representatives. There's representatives of like minority groups if they want to raise a case and say there was discrimination involved or whatnot. They would have a legal right to the video without having to pay the fee. And then for the collision report and police report, we decided to adopt effectively the same strategy so that there's no confusion, so that anybody involved in the incident wouldn't have to pay for the case report or the collision report.
Okay. And so that asterisk was really just kind of saying there are people who are exempt from this and does not apply.
And we
Yes.
can add the footnote for
Yeah,
next
that
time.
would be super cool.
Yep.
Yes.
Second question, I'm a little confused by the need to recover for transmission of electronic records, since we already have those records and we're going to pay for GovQA anyway. And so it just feels to me like the cost recovery seems a little bit unnecessary and redundant. And since I think it's good to probably encourage people to have transparent government, I'm just kind of curious what the thinking, the rationale was around that.
Sure, no, it's a valid question. We were just looking at all of the allowable fees that we are allowed to charge for, and we just wanted to propose them to really get feedback. That was one that not many agencies have adopted. So we welcome any feedback that you have on that.
Okay, and I have a couple of folks jumping in. I think Chief had her hand up, and then I'll go to City Administrator.
Thank you. I think the other piece too, we do already have the electronic files, but it's the manpower and people to have to bring them in and to get and collect all that data and before providing it, I think would be the other piece that would add to that.
Yeah, it seems to me, though, if I was listening to Tammy's presentation, those are exempt. I mean, we can't charge for that. That's a sunk cost we have to eat, the prep time to finding the record. So I might want to get clear on that one.
And I'll just add that GovQA is not something everybody has. I mean, it is a platform that allows us to be very transparent. There is an actual cost to that. And I would imagine, Tammy, I don't know if you can answer this question, that even at $9, given the volume that we do, it's still only a small part of that cost. So there are many communities in Washington State that still have spreadsheets, and that is how they manage this. And we're fortunate GovQA has been around close to 10 years now, and it's a great tool. Glad we're using it, but it's not something everybody uses because they don't want to spend the money. Money's still money.
You want to follow up?
No, I think I'm good. I understand that it costs money, but we also budget the money. So we have the service, so we can do the thing, and now we're going to charge again. So that I'm not a big fan of it. I'll just say that.
Fair enough. Any other questions? Councilmember Joe.
Thank you. Really appreciate the detail that this presentation went into. You have a passion for what you do, and it certainly is reflected in the report that you gave tonight. I wanted to go back to your slide about who was making requests. We don't need to pull it up necessarily, but it said that 8% were law firms. In our conversations tonight, just so we can get our arms around what we're talking about, are we talking about only civil requests, or are we talking about criminal requests for discovery as well?
It would include both.
Okay.
Yeah, 8% of the requests received and processed by the city for last year. And that trend holds pretty steady, somewhere between like 7 and 10% for the 5 years that we've been tracking this information.
Okay, and one of the reasons we don't charge for criminal defendants or their criminal defense attorneys when they're requesting the items is because they were directly involved in that event and they do that discovery as part of the criminal defense kind of process. Is that correct?
For body-worn camera footage and for police reports or collision reports, yes, but they would still be responsible for any other applicable fees. However, if this is a discovery, like if the city is being sued, that would be a public records request. It would be a different process, and we wouldn't charge them fees for that. But these are, as you said, for if somebody is representing somebody, they want to get records in the city's possession, they would go through a public records request. Or sometimes somebody, a firm who might be looking to see if there is a case involved, they might go hunting through the public records request process to just see what records there are and if they even have a case. So it kind of comes before they decide whether or not they will move forward with a lawsuit.
Sure, it's part of the pre-discovery process to decide the merits of a case if you're doing a personal injury work. So then, just so I'm clear, when a criminal defense attorney requests the records through the prosecutor's office, and it does involve a camera, body-worn camera, could you just clarify that we don't charge for that, and just briefly outline the couple of steps that it takes to get that record to the prosecutor's office and to the defendant?
Chief, do you want to chime in?
Sure. Can you break that down again, Councilmember Joe?
Yeah, and if the question is just needs to be deferred, I'm completely happy to do that. I just want to make sure that we...
Councilmember Joe?
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but Rachel Turpin, the city attorney, is online.
That's
and
fine.
Why don't we give her a first crack at answering that?
Oh, I see the hand.
Sure,
Thanks,
thank you.
Rachel.
Hi, I can answer that. Rachel Turpin, city attorney. Councilmember Joe, this won't affect the discovery process at all. So those individuals should be able to get copies of the body-worn camera that the prosecutor has through discovery without any cost. This would just be if they were seeking it on their own or if their attorney was seeking it prior to the discovery process.
Very good, thank you. I like that clarification so that we understand the two processes are different. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councilmember DiMichele? Before I come back to you, has anybody who not asked a question want to jump in? Councilmember DiMichele.
Thanks. So we, of course, have individuals in our community who even a small charge would be difficult for their budget. And I'm just wondering if there's been conversation about possibly waiving fees for, and I'm just going to pull one out of the hat, but the 30% AMI, those people who are really struggling in our community. What discussion have you had around that, and have we explored what the impacts of that might be?
That's a very good question. Thank you. We haven't explored that exact issue yet. We did start to go down the road of looking to see if we could waive fees for Issaquah residents. But because the Public Records Act states that you cannot discriminate between requesters and treat them differently, we realized we could not. If we charge fees, we have to charge everybody equally. However, I feel like this is possibly a different type of question we haven't explored yet. If Rachel is able to weigh in on it, that would be great. But otherwise, I think we need to have some more conversations and report back on the 20th.
Rachel?
I'm happy to weigh in. I think that given the language in the Public Records Act regarding treating requesters the same, it would be problematic to waive fees entirely, but that's why there's the in-person inspection option for free. We can look into it further as well.
There's a door opening and closing behind you that's getting a lot of attention. And do you want to follow up on that, Barb? Okay. Any other questions from any other council members? Okay, so it does sound like there's some additional information that would be coming back on the 20th based on the questions we heard. So I'm now going to open the public hearing at 7:57 p.m. And if you are online joining us virtually and would like to make comments, please raise your virtual hand so our clerk can see it, or send a chat message. If you're in the room and did not sign up to speak, I'll still ask for other speakers after we go through the list. And City Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak?
No one has signed up, and I don't see interest from the 2 virtual attendees.
Connie, do you want to come up and talk? Everyone else in the room is staff.
You as well.
Connie Marsh, I live on Squawk, and I say nice to see you in person because I do request public records. And I have been doing this for 26 years now. And in the past, I rarely had to request public records because public records that we're talking about, normal public records, were just available on the city website online. You could go through years and years and years and find the history of Issaquah. And then we got a new website, and they took away 3/4 of the records pre-2012, and they have disappeared off the planet. And so in order to get anything pre-2012, I have to do a public records request through no particular fault of my own, except for the city decided it was going to get rid of the public records and not make them available. So I think the public records, now the police redaction thing, I don't know about that. So I'm not talking about that. I think it is a core responsibility of all government to ensure transparent, easy, and fair access to the government pieces, because the community, the people have a responsibility in upholding our democratic government. It is not just the government, it is not just the judiciary, it is also the people that the people have to see. And the public records request is harder than it used to be. It's also more confusing because half the time I am told by staff on fairly current events that no, you have to make a public records request. I can't get you that information because I have been told I can't give that to you because we need to track how long it's taking. So things that are very current I have to do a public records request for, even though it's not really that consistent. And so then when I do a public records request, sometimes it's because there's something missing from the record from 2012 to now, and I can't find it even though it's supposed to be there. And it goes on and on and on. Now, I don't do all that many, but when I do them, I tend to do them in a concentrated cluster on a topic. And for me, I think that is my duty and responsibility as a citizen to try to make the government as best as it can be. And I don't think I should be charged every time I try to do that. And so I am highly resistant to this idea that people should have to pay for simple records requests or even complex records requests. And I don't think that newspapers should be having, because we have so few, like one, should be having to pay fairly large amounts for things that are of the public interest, and it's one of the very few daylighting things that the community has. So I would ask that you look at this core value of government and compare it to some of the quantity of money, compare it to some of the other things that we have been spending tremendous amounts of money, millions and millions of dollars on, that are optional. And you look at the quantity of money, it's tiny. It is tiny. So please consider the transparency and the people. Oh, that was so awkward. But anyway, there you go. That's what I got.
Thanks, Connie. So there were a couple of things in the comments as well for council to think about. City Clerk, is that it for speakers this evening?
Yes, no, Mayor, we should close the hearing if there's no objection.
Does council have any objection to closing the public hearing? Not seeing any, so the hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 8:02. And this item will return on the November 20th City Council agenda for action. I'm assuming, based on the questions this evening and some comments received, that this would go under regular business so that you have some additional time. Okay. Thank you for that.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
The public speaker made some inaccurate comments, and I'm not sure, given the nature of the public hearing, if it's appropriate to correct the record at this point, or would you rather have the staff come back when the item's on regular business to correct the record?
I'm going to leave that up to council. If there was some inaccuracies in the comments tonight, could that just be addressed during the presentation at the 20th? Or did you want some answers this evening? Council President?
Yeah, I would like it relevant to this time, so I would prefer it closer to the comments today.
Today, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
and I'm just looking because I need to make.
It's an unusual request, and I hesitate even to raise it, but I think the significance of the misstatements, I wouldn't want the council or anyone watching the meeting this evening to come away with an inaccurate understanding of what we actually provide.
I saw lots of head nods, so Councilmember Mertz.
I would just ask that we double check with our legal counsel that it's within the way public hearings.
She just left. Hold
on. Of course.
Let me see if oh, there she is.
There she is. Rachel.
Yeah, that you can address them tonight. That would be fine.
Thank you, Councilmember Mertz. So I did see generally more heads nodding than not, and so let's follow up on Council President's request. And can you provide some information?
Council, this is Tisha Geezer, City Clerk. I'll make the comment that we did have a change in website a number of years ago, but we do have a very robust records archive that we are working to expand. This is accessible through the city website. It has all of the city's ordinances since 1892. It has all of the city council minutes since 1892. It has all of the city's resolution back into the 90s. It has all of the city council agenda packets from 2000 on, and we're actively working to backfill that another 20 years. as well as Ms. Marsh mentioned, a number of board and commission records, which largely begin in 2012. And with some of the work we're doing at City Hall Northwest, we'll be able to backfill some of those as well. So there was a change. I'm unaware of this specifics, but did want to highlight the fact that we do have a robust searchable archive. I will tell you it's not foolproof, and sometimes things are missing, exhibits and a meeting, an aspect of a meeting. And when those instances arise, we work to see what we can locate. It's an iterative process. And as Tammy also mentioned, the city's been embarking on digitizing many of our paper records, which just continues to kind of fill out our collection. Lastly, I'll mention that we also work closely with the state archives and recently with the history museums to share records that we no longer are required to hold on to.
And just to be clear, Madam City Clerk, those are all records that are available today free of charge.
Yes, and typically if a request is provided for anything that is on our website or should be and might be something that someone is unable to locate, we will provide them the link or work to attempt to locate the record.
And again, how far back did you say that the city, if someone was looking for a city council minutes or materials, how far back do we currently have on the website?
Yeah, those are text searchable, and we have those back to the city's inception in 1892, thanks to the hard work of some of our previous clerks.
So from 1892 to 2023 is available online free of charge?
Yes.
And are you aware of any other community that goes back to 1892 that has their records online available free of charge?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
So there was a clarification. If there is anything, the public hearing is over, but you do have the opportunity to reach out to the city administrator, the city clerk before November 20th with any additional questions that can be addressed at the November 20th meeting as best as possible. So keep that in mind. The regular business, we're moving into that portion of the meeting right now, and it's AB 8551. Intelligent Transportation Systems Plan, and the request before council this evening is to approve it. I'd like to invite Public Works Director Emily Moon to the lectern for the presentation. Welcome, Emily.
Good evening, Emily Moon, Public Works Director. I'll start by saying I know some of you have heard much of what I will say tonight, so I will try to be as expeditious as I can. Most important to being here tonight to talk about the Intelligent Transportation Systems Plan, in my mind, is to introduce you to Mr. Nick Green. Nick is switching hats in our department. He is now our new traffic signal operations engineer, responsible for a whole lot, but definitely the steward of our ITS plan as we go forward. So I wanted to make sure Nick is introduced to you this evening. There we go. So tonight we're going to just give a quick overview of the plan. I'm going to summarize the main components of it, and then we hope at the end you will be ready to approve the ITS plan. I want to define the term first because I'm going to say it over and over. ITS is our Intelligent Transportation System. And this is a plan that is really very focused on our technology, both the hardware and the software, that is used to manage the data, to collect the data that we get from the technology in our transportation system, and all of the resources and practices that we use to also manage that system. When we began this project of looking at updating our ITS plan, the last one was done over 20 years ago. We knew we needed to write it in a way that acknowledged that there are many, many different possibilities in this technology universe, and that those are going to continue to change over time. It's a big and dynamic landscape, constantly changing, and there are lots of choices we can make depending on the values that we place on those different options. So there's no predetermined, no precise way to get at solving all transportation or traffic issues in town. There are many different possible solutions that we can deploy to help make sure that transportation in our community is running smoothly and safely and functioning for people in all different modes of travel. So we take that big universe of possibilities and we have tried to distill it down into the ITS plan. That plan has refined that list of options to a collection of actions, projects, policies, practices that we think we could choose among to collect and use the data to further our transportation system goals. Then we take that big plan and we boil it down further and we put a set of projects in the next 6 years in our CIP document, and we apply that first layer of implementation and resource planning at the CIP level. That really describes what we think we can get done over the next 6 years, what funding resources we may need, and it takes into consideration sequencing of those projects. Then, as you know, we take the CIP and we get even more specific and we talk about what can be accomplished in the biennial budget the next 2 years. And that establishes the resource plan for implementation and it sets our biennial work plan. Lastly, you see a little arrow at the top shooting in like a comet here, and that's our concurrency policy. And we're working on that update right now. That'll be before you soon. We will include our thoughts with the ITS plan and try to gather your input during your discussion on the concurrency policy to help us make further decisions that are left open in this plan. That'll influence the hierarchy of our policies and the projects over time. We know performance measurement is very, very important. This is a data plan, data-driven plan, so collecting performance measurement will be really important to us as we implement. And with so many options available to us in that ITS universe and that constantly changing environment over a pretty long implementation period, measuring our performance and the ROI that we get on these different projects is going to be really important for future decision making. I've said on this slide that we're going to measure largely at the project level. We'll be measuring at the program level as well, but every individual project is different. Every project will be aligned to a certain set of objectives. Maybe one project will differ from another in terms of which outcomes it is targeting, and therefore we want to make sure that we're measuring the specific targeted objectives for each project. Some examples of performance measures that we will be attending to, this is not an exhaustive list, just meant to give you a flavor, are measuring the efficient use of our infrastructure. In particular, we're very concerned with multimodal performance, safety measures such as number of collisions, red light running, near misses, also the ratio of investment to impact, or ROI, travel times and efficiency of travel, stopping and emissions, mode splits, reductions in problematic areas in town, such as dilemma zones in intersections, and our system reliability, so the percentage of equipment that we have to replace on a recommended schedule, for example. Another way that we're going to measure performance or attend to performance in our ITS system is to do some pilot projects. And you'll see some of those in the list of projects at the end of the report. We have approximately 4, a video analytics project, an adaptive signal control project, traffic signal performance measures pilot, and the transit signal priority pilot. Just want to refresh your memories on a few key moments in time on this project's development. The second rectangle here speaks to the level of involvement we had with both the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee and the Transportation Advisory Board. And those two groups really helped us to define the goals, objectives, whittle the objectives to the top objectives, and our proposed approach to the implementation, in addition to weighing in on what should be our priority projects. I want to briefly just talk about the main components of the plan. We have a mission statement that is guiding us as we begin implementation. There was a slight change to this at the suggestion of the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee, just switching the order of words in that first sentence, where now people is at the end. Also, another component of our plan is the goals. And so we have 6 goals. The first is improve the safety of the transportation system. The second is improve the efficiency and sustainability of the system. Third is to provide traveler information to help inform route and mode choice. Fourth was plan and deploy cost-efficient and effective ITS technology. Goal 5 is integrate city ITS efforts with those of our regional partners. And goal 6 is monitor transportation performance measures and utilize this information to improve safety and efficiency of the transportation system. Next, I just wanted to show you a few images that are in the report to highlight the good work that the consultants and our staff did of getting a clear assessment of our inventory and adding that inventory where it was not yet in our GIS system into our GIS system. So here's one example where we have mapped the very critical communications network in the ITS plan. Cameras, which we know are good tools both for the public and public safety and public works departments. And here's an example of where we have our cameras in town and our dynamic message signs. These are the over-the-road, more permanent signs. We also use tables throughout the document to depict our inventory and to show how we're going to begin tracking life cycles a little bit more, making better informed recommendations on replacements and repairs. And now, because of the work on GIS, we have a better way of seeing our inventory as a whole. The plan also includes an assessment of our current staffing level that is supporting ITS and makes some recommendations for possible future staffing needs as we begin to implement the recommendations in the plan. The recommendations include possibly adding 2.5 FTE over the next several years and performing 2 reclassifications to better address what those individuals in those positions are currently doing and will be doing in the future. These recommendations would come back before you during the biennial budget deliberations and after we've vetted them with the city administrator's office. The plan also speaks to our big ambitious goal, which is to move from the left side of the slide to the right, where right now we are in what we call a perform state, where we are very focused on operations and maintenance. We are doing things on an ad hoc basis in a fairly reactive manner. As we move, we're hoping we're getting closer to the middle, where we can monitor the system, we can act earlier, can identify issues and test solutions and have plans and strategic processes. Ultimately, as we get that technology in place, we hope to be more data-driven, proactively manage, and leverage and partner all that we can to be in the optimized state. So we've talked about our implementation approach with committees and with TAB, excuse me, and we believe we have consensus on that approach. And that is to build our readiness in order to implement our future ITS projects. And in order to do that, we need to make a substantive effort toward the repair and replacement of current infrastructure and to perform upgrades. That will take multiple years, but that's the foundational work we need to do. Otherwise, we cannot build more and better. One of the biggest near-term efforts that I'll highlight for you here is the second bullet under near-term efforts, and that's to develop our communications network plan. IT is working on that now. That designs the network that we need to have as the backbone architecture and all the veins going through town that are going to enable us to do more progressive work in this arena. A little word about the ITS projects that are listed in the plan. There are 26 projects over the next 6 years, totaling about $10 million. And I wanted to say those ITS project numbers are not synonymous with the CIP project numbers that you see. We've tried to crosswalk that in the plan so you can see how things line up. That was just a product of building two things at different times. We have, from that list of 26, some you will find in the CIP, but not all. And that's because, of course, the CIP is only the next 6 years, and because we are focused, at least in the next few years, on those foundational efforts, which are a lot of repairs, replacements, and upgrades. And a lot of the projects are found elsewhere. They're found in either the current or future operating budgets because of the nature of their size of the budget or the type of project that's involved, or because they were dependent on earlier projects that may be in the CIP but are out in future years. Some projects may not be in the CIP because they hinge on those policy discussions that we will have during concurrency update. And some may be consolidated into comprehensive CIP projects, so they could have been merged. These are the 12 ITS projects that are in the current CIP. There are 12 with a little asterisk, and that's for the RRFB replacement program. That's the rectangular rapid flashing beacons that are used by pedestrians to activate a light so that they can hopefully cross safely. That is technically not an ITS technology because ours aren't yet smart, but at some point they may become smart, so that's why they're not counted in the 12. In addition, the plan spells out areas where we need to do some policy work, develop other plans, or engage in some efforts to create memorandums of understanding with other entities. And the one MOU that we have focused on in the ITS plan is, of course, the one with WashDOT to help coordinate signal operations and to delineate roles and responsibilities. The plan also depicts a little bit of our annual operating budget commitment to ITS. I wanted to make sure that we had shared that information with you. Our operating budget in 2023 in the Public Works Department that is going towards supporting our intelligent transportation system is roughly $1.25 million, and that's all inclusive, labor, equipment. And currently, ITS in the operating budget is supported by largely general fund funding sources, but also in the CIP, the ITS projects receive not only general fund support, but are funded through grants They may be listed as undetermined, and that's just because they're in the outer years and we haven't attached a source yet. You know that we focus on the first 2 years typically in the CIP to make sure that we have funding sources identified for the biennial budget. And then lastly, we have included the TBD sales tax as a possible funding source for ITS projects in the future. I wanted to share what we've heard from the TAB and from Mobility and Infrastructure and from residents who have weighed in on this plan. Largely, the feedback has been very supportive. In particular, we've been glad to have the support for our foundational efforts that we need to put our time and energy into, and acknowledgement that we have to do that first. We've also heard that the projects were aligned with the goals and objectives that were set forth at the beginning of developing the ITS plan, and that there's a lot of support for us to move on that continuum toward that optimized state. Last week, we heard from TAB and from the Council Committee that there is an interest to continue to be engaged on those policy questions and to weigh in on projects and future investment priorities. We commit to doing that. I also want to acknowledge that we had some questions at the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee meeting regarding our system security. And I wanted to give a few highlights of what we have done in the last couple of years and what we're planning to do in the near future on that front. We have completed in 2023 a project to make sure that all ITS devices are now in a firewalled network, separate from all of the other city networks. Also this year, we made sure that remote access to all ITS devices was restricted. This year, we also improved the communication between the various departments and the traffic devices that are out in the field, and we are logging those interactions. Toward the end of this year, we are working on enforcing firewall rules to make sure that we limit what the city and the what city devices and traffic devices can talk to each other, make sure that those are secure. We're also upgrading network switches by the end of this year. And then as we move into next year, we're making sure that there are additional enforcement protocols for network access for unknown devices that may attempt to plug in. And we are reviewing our full suite of ITS-related applications and further hardening those. And then on an ongoing basis, we are, of course, always doing that same sort of assessment where we're looking at what do we need to upgrade and stay current and make sure that we're replacing software and hardware so that it has the best possible performance, but also the latest security technology. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director Moon. I'm going to go to Councilmember Martz.
Thanks. I have a few questions. First is there there's not a financial ask today, is there? This is a plan and then the elements are future asks.
That's correct.
Okay. In your list of goals, you had number 2 was efficiency and something else. What does efficiency mean in this context, and how are you defining it?
Yep, it's a good question. Let me pull out the goal and the plan real quick.
I think safety was number 1, but then efficiency and
safety
something was number 2.
Yeah, sustainability of the transportation system is the other part. So I think there's a lot of pieces to that. I think efficiency is we have goals in comp plan, we have goals in the mobility master plan, we have goals as well in the sustainability, the CAP plan, and I think we have goals depending on type of mode of travel. We need to still work on those, and we need to have a broader conversation about the weighting between which modes are most important in which circumstances, and how are we going to try to achieve those goals. I think the hope is that those two pieces of efficiency and sustainability are in that goal together, and I think we have to look at how we can make sure we're moving people throughout town in a way that also isn't to the detriment of the sustainability goals. So I think we're trying to balance within that goal. It's a multifaceted, and I think we still have some work to do to establish more fine point definitions of efficiency in goal 2.
Okay. If I'm going to step forward 10 years from now, we've done all the things that are important that we want to do. Like, what are some of the levers that we're going to have? I'm struggling. There's lots of data here. There's lots of getting data and analyzing data and coming to conclusions from data. But like, how's it going to be different on the ground, for either for the city or for somebody traveling in the city? Like, what are going to be some of the things that we're going to have that we don't have today when this plan is done?
Sure. Well, first, I think we're going to have a better sense of how we want to prioritize different modes and what technology we want to deploy in order to ensure that those modes get around. We have some conflicts in this plan that we have to work out. For example, we do leading pedestrian interval to help pedestrians get across first. That may be to the detriment of another goal on transportation or transit signal prioritization. So those are big topics that we have to figure out. It's hard to answer your question about where we ultimately arrive because we have big policy questions that we have not debated yet. Ultimately, where I hope we arrive at a place where we have safe mobility around town for all modes, that we have enhanced our ability to reach our sustainability goals because we don't have unnecessary idling. That's another possible outcome of this plan. I think we have signals that are coordinated so that we can move people through town with ease and onto state roads and off of state roads with ease. Those are just some of the outcomes that I hope that we get to by implementing this plan.
Okay, and my last question is really around one of those specifically, which is coordinating with, for instance, with WashDOT. You mentioned in there an MOU. Mm-hmm. So is one of these elements of this plan get our stoplights coordinated with the WashDOT stoplights? Because I didn't see that written anywhere, and I'm concerned that if you tell me that we need an MOU and that's going to take 5 years and then we're going to start coordinating and then it's going to be, I was hoping to see specifically in this plan, it seems obvious to me that an obvious benefit that has no detriments other than costing money is coordinating our stoplights with the stoplights that we have no control over.
The MOU is that mechanism. We have to have that agreement. WashDOT has to give up some control, has to be willing to participate with us. That's step 1. Step 2 is trying to make it actually work so that we have access to the technology in the intersection. It's linked with our network, but it's our commitment to sit down with WashDOT and hopefully compel them to participate with us and allow some way of us to coordinate signals.
Yeah, it's not clear to me that they would have to give up any control. They would just have to tell us. They would have to inform us, right? They could be the input, and then we'd be the output, right? And we would just do our signals based on whatever whatever they do, right? It's not obvious that they would have to change anything that they do. They would just have to make that information available to us in some mechanism or another. But is there an element of this plan that is doing the things that you just said?
Councilmember, so let's get a clarification on that. For the city of Bellevue, does the city of Bellevue control those WashDOT intersections, or does WashDOT control them?
It depends on which intersections we're
But
talking about.
sometimes it is cities actually
Correct.
controlling the intersections.
Correct. And it's a hodgepodge in most cities. Most cities don't have their own control of state intersections, but Bellevue is a good
Bellevue has
example
some.
of having it in at least a few places. There are considerations. They could tell us what the timing is on their signals, which we know, and we could coordinate our signals to fit with theirs. That's one way to go. But there are other things that we would like to have the ability to coordinate. For example, if there is an issue on I-90 or on 18, and we know it's going to have an impact in town, and we want to make a change on SR 900, for example, to help alleviate that. We don't have that ability right now. And it's possible through an agreement with the state that we could.
So is that effort one of these elements of the
The
plan?
MOU effort, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilmember Martz. The order I have is Councilmember Hunt, Council President Walsh. If I've missed somebody, let me know.
The first question I had on the, to Councilmember Mart's question about efficiency and sustainability, are you thinking of those as needing, I think you mentioned needing to balance, but are you thinking of those as opposing within that goal?
No, not opposing, not opposing. I just think there's choices in efficiency. Efficiency for whom, for what mode, and that has implications potentially.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. The second question, one is, I have heard from a lot of community members about wanting to have the speed feedback signs, those movable ones, in their neighborhoods. And so I wondered if you could explain the process for which those get allocated to different problem areas or different
Sure.
areas where they get deployed.
The speed trailers are the police department's equipment. So I don't know exactly what their protocol is for those. We, in our department, we help manage the school zone cameras, not on the revenue side, but just making sure the contract for the maintenance is upkept. We do not operate, place, take the requests, I believe, for the speed trailers.
City administrator can get you an answer on that from police. I don't know if you have it tonight.
And I think the answer is that it's on an as-needed basis. We have only so many and so many resources to actually manage them. I think if that's an issue for the council, for future operating issues, we can certainly look at costs associated with additional trailers and additional staffing.
I think basically it's not part of ITS, it's part of police response to complaints about.
Okay. Thank you. And then my last question is about the transit signal pilot. So that is currently in 2028, I believe, in the timeline. We currently have a MetroFlex program, and it also mentions that this would be in partnership with Metro and depending on that partnership. So is that, and this is also based on a community member question, advocate for transit. If there were opportunities for more transit earlier, would that be a conversation that we would have then in the context of like the CIP if we wanted to implement that part earlier, or if Metro was improving bus service since there was a need for that earlier?
Sure. There are a couple things we want to make sure that we do ahead of just deciding to go and implement the transit signal prioritization. So one is make sure that our technology within the intersections have the capacity to actually provide that functionality. So that's a piece that we're not yet able to do in all places where we might want to have TSP. So that's the first one. The second is we really want to make sure that we have that concurrency policy discussion as it relates to which modes get, I'll say, preferential treatment in the intersection. So because that may have implications for the level of service in intersections or the efficiency of travel in town. So we want to have the policy conversation first, same time we're building out the capacity from the technology side in the intersections. And then lastly, we certainly would want to work out the details with Metro. But if we could get those pieces done earlier, I believe those are the biggest stumbling blocks. And if we can remove those, we could probably speed that up.
Thank you.
Council President Walsh?
Okay, I think a lot of my questions are related to some of those areas. So let me just see if I understand. You were saying then the policy decisions about mode preferences, is that all happening within a concurrency conversation?
We expect that should be part of the discussion for concurrency.
Okay, and when, do you know when our concurrency conversation is set to happen?
I think we're still working on adjusting that schedule. We've had some delay in getting, we first do the data collection and data analysis, and we've just started to get the report back from the consultant on that. So I think we're still a few months out, but it's a 2024 return to council to have an update on the concurrency data itself, to tell you how the intersections are performing now, and to identify if there are needs on particularly the capital side, but maybe also the policy side that we need to discuss with all of you in order to make our concurrency system work. And then an opportunity to step back and look at it, not just from the data standpoint, but goals and objectives.
Okay, and so obviously getting the data for concurrency and making those policy decisions are going to be first requirements before sets of things can get done. But if we adopt this plan and don't yet have that data, is there still other things that can make progress before that information is available?
On the ITS plan itself? Yes, absolutely. So we've put together a long list of near-term projects, which are the 0 to 2 year implementation plan. And a lot of that, as I said, are those necessary foundational pieces for upgrades and replacements and building out the comms network.
Okay, thanks.
Going back out for more questions. I'm going to go to Chair Ray and see if you have anything from the committee process that you want to share.
Oh, so much to share. Yeah, so the Mobility Infrastructure Committee did spend a fair amount of time with the ITS plan. I think generally across the board, we were very supportive of it. And I think one of the things that Director Moon shared with us tonight, which I think is really key, there were two things I think are really key that we talked about. One was that this plan is sort of the guiding document that then informs the CIP, that then informs the budget. So this is almost the strategy of ITS that then will get implemented over CIPs and over multiple budgets. So, you know, to Councilmember Martz's comment about, is this a funding discussion? We asked that, we talked about that too. No, this is a directional question. And the second thing I think is, came out of the committee meetings that I think is super important to, for me at least, was as much as I hated the investment in getting us up to snuff in terms of our current infrastructure, it is a necessary condition, and it also will position us, I hope, I believe, so that we can also take advantage of new technologies, because this is a very dynamic area, and so we want to be able to take advantage of those new technologies. So we're going to invest now, so we're positioned for the future. And then the last thing that, well, two last things, guys, there's two, there's like, I feel like Noah, everything comes in twos. One of the things that we talked about was the need for metrics, and I'm glad to see that that's come through. And then the final thing was this moving from perform to manage to optimize from a maturity level of the program. So across the board, couple of questions, couple of things to add to it. I think it's been reflected in the plan. I'm pretty excited about getting going on this strategy. Thank you.
It was your word. You said it first. Okay, thank you, Chair Ray. Necessary to make a motion. Do I have somebody making a motion? I will go back to Councilmember Ray.
I move to approve the Intelligent Transportation System ITS plan.
Second.
Yes, moved and seconded, thanks. Is there any council discussion? I see Council President, Michelle, right? Okay, almost everybody. Let's just go down the road. Okay, Council President.
Thank you. I'm very excited by ITS. I read over this plan and I see a lot of dollar signs in there, and that scares me. But much like I think other plans that we've adopted lately, such as the Issaquah Climate Action Plan, I really appreciate that there was an implementation section. It's not just a plan, it's a plan that we take action on. And so I appreciate seeing that there was a short-term, near-term, and long-term set of recommendations. When I'm evaluating this plan, though, as how am I going to be able to use this when it comes to the CIP, I do see some things missing. And one of them is that major policy conversation around how do we prioritize between different mode shares. The other thing, which again, I'll go back to the ICAP, the Issaquah Climate Action Plan, as kind of the holy grail of, I look at that and I know when I'm supposed to do something, whether it's affordable, what's related. So what I don't see in this plan is a sense of, if I'm looking at that for CIP planning, I don't have a sense of what the relative impact of choosing one project over another is. And I know those relative impacts change based on that mode preference, so I understand why it isn't in there, but it still to me is a deficiency in its usefulness. The other thing I don't see is targets. So metrics are great, but if I don't know what this is supposed to accomplish and what the targets are, again, I think a lot of that comes back to that concurrency and mode share, but to me is still a difficulty in using this plan as a working document. And then the other piece is feasibility or affordability. Again, just trying to make this as usable as possible. So I would be interested to know whether there is a way to update this after the concurrency conversation, or whether there is a way that you see us being able to dig into those things when it comes to the CIP project. Because I see a lot of things in the near term and midterm, and I don't know we're going to have the budget for all of those things. So how can I utilize this information to make decisions between those?
Yes. I think you're absolutely right. I think there are a lot of unknowns still, and this is a broad plan meant to be updated over time as those technologies change, as our capacities change, as we get more certainty about goals and objectives and targets. And then at that point, we can decide what exact technology do we want, how much does it cost, how much will it cost to implement it where it needs to be. A lot of unknowns still, but this at least gives us a framework to start having those conversations and start making those calculations.
Thank you, Director Moon. That was a great comment. I think one thing that I haven't heard tonight, but I think is really important, is that there are things in here for all different modes, and they all compete against each other. Making one mode a little more friendly is going to make another one less. And we are still a very car-centric, under-metroed community. So we are in the pain point here of how are you going to pick projects to get us to the better, more urban types of modes when most people are still in cars and still prefer to be in cars because of weather, for one thing, but also some lack of infrastructure. So you will have difficult conversations. So I think you phrased that very well. Thank you for doing that. Let's just go down the road because I did see like almost every microphone go up. Oh, Skip. So, Councilmember Mertz?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish this had a little bit more punch around getting people through town faster. I wish it more explicitly said that. That's why I asked about efficiency and sustainability. I think there's really only 3 goals. I see 6 here, but 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all derivatives of 1 and 2. It's safety, it's getting people through town faster, and it's sustainability, done in a way that's environmentally effective. There's a cost piece of that too. I don't know how one says it, but that's what people want. They want to get through town faster. I think the mayor's right. I think because of things that are beyond our control, I would love tomorrow if we had light rail. I would love if I had more options to get into town. I would love if, you know, they're not eventually going to take the 554 away from me, so I wouldn't have to eventually go through Bellevue. You know, there's such a hunger for multi-mode, but for the better part of the next 20 years, we are going to be dealing with cars. And so I wish this were a little punchier. And I don't know exactly how to define punchier, but I know that what people want is to get through town faster. And so, you know, and I know that that's not building 8-lane freeways. You know, we're smarter than that. But I do wish the goal explicitly called that out more. I think efficiency is not a strong enough word for what I know the public feels about traffic in this. Thank you.
I'd like to go back to Director Moon for a comment on that. Is that a goal to move more people through faster in cars? Is that a goal?
It's one of the goals. Yes, we've heard that from council. We've heard that from residents. We've also heard other goals, other definitions of efficiency. That faster on what? Faster on a bike? Faster on foot? Faster on a bus?
And I think that's the narrative that is fuzzy here. Is I don't think it's faster in car. I'm not sure that I heard that we could all of a sudden cut your commute time down to 25% of what it was.
That's not what I'm saying, but we have seen a reduction in bus coverage in this town in the 14 years that I have lived here, and I don't see anything at the county level that makes me feel like they're going to be providing a lot more buses. So I'm totally open to other ideas. I did not say getting people through town faster in cars. If there are other ways to do it, we have joked around about gondolas and tunnels and all sorts of ideas. I am totally open to other ideas.
Anything.
But get people. And also, we're going to have people coming through. 50% of our traffic is people who neither begin nor end here. Get them through faster in some way, shape, or form. Maybe the faster for them is because they're going to go on a different route. But call that out somehow in this. People want what they want from efficiency. And you can have sustainability in there. You can have, of course, safety should be the first one. But call out specifically, people want to get through faster by hook or by crook or by gondola or by hot air balloon. They want to get through faster. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilmember Ray.
Thanks. I said most of my piece, but I want to kind of hop on this one a little bit because I've been championing ITS for a long, long time. And when I first saw it in Bellevue, what impressed me wasn't the underlying technology. It was by applying technology and data, we were able to better utilize roadway. And I think that's the crux of this. We will be able to get more utilization, better utilization out of our existing transportation infrastructure through an ITS system with a big old caveat that says it gets even better if we can partner with those external entities that we have to connect with. But that's what Bellevue did, and they were really successful at it. And so, Councilmember Martz, it should be able to hit people through town faster because we'll be able to use the roadways better. It should be able to move buses better through town because we can use the roadway better. It should be safer for pedestrians and bicycles because we know what's coming down the road. So that's what excites me, is data helps us get more out of what we have because we all know we can't add any more. So for me, that's the goal of ITS. It's to get more out of what we got by using technology and data. And if we can do that, and I think we can, then we're going to actually do something really, really significant for this community. So I'm super excited about the plan.
Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the plan too. In terms of the goals, we do have mobility goals from our strategic plan that we did with lots of input from the community. And so I think we could look to some of those and how we intended to evaluate our success with mobility, because I think the ITS plan is a key part of achieving our mobility goals overall. So, for example, we had community satisfaction rating of overall ease of getting to all the places you usually have to visit in Issaquah, which is, I believe, something that we look at on the community survey. And there are some other system connectivity goals and things that we could evaluate. But I agree with my colleagues that I think it would be good to have some clearer definition of like what's the target. How do we know when we're moving in that direction, and what does success look like? I also was thinking about when we get to the CIP, that's when I believe the projects go through this matrix. So to Council President Walsh's questions about how do we evaluate, previously I looked at our last CIP and it had the ITS plan projects in there already. I think they probably changed with this completion of the plan. But then they're all ranked, and they have equity, for example, which is not referenced in this plan, but which would be evaluated as part of how we prioritize the projects in the CIP. So I think that is not in this plan, but it would be a part of our overall process once we actually evaluate and prioritize the projects. So that helped me kind of think through our process there. And then the last thing is I like that efficiency and sustainability are together. I think that in the ICAP, which was referenced, it also has commute trip reduction, for example, that improves sustainability and system efficiency. They can go hand in hand. Also reducing idling, which I think as far as idling is both inefficient, I think everybody would agree, and also bad for the environment. So from a sustainability and efficiency perspective, if we can reduce idling, that would be great. So I think looking for those together and ways that we can achieve both of those goals together is both how I read the plan, and I think meets our community objectives there. So the last thing I'll say is I know that traffic safety and transportation safety is extremely important to this community, and so I think having that be our overarching goal is correct, and I hope and look to see how this plan improves our transportation safety of our system overall. So I will be supportive.
Councilmember DiMichele.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thanks to the staff for all the work that went into this. And so as a member of the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee, this is the third time that we've gotten to see the plan, and I actually spent the weekend reading it. And the thing that I would commend to people in our community who want to learn more about it is to actually look at the inventory that you put together, which was really extensive and deep, and reminded me that we have already invested a lot in this system. And accompanying the inventory were a number of graphs showing the life expectancy and then the actual age of the various elements of our inventory. We're clearly digging our way out of a hole here. We have a lot of equipment that needs replacement, is going to be expensive to replace. And you said earlier, and I agree, that this is foundational work for the near future. We have this big aspirational goal to become proactive, which I think is wonderful. But right now, we're still stuck in reactive, and we're going to be there for a while because what we're going to do is bring this system up to the current qualities that we wanted to have, and then we can start. Then we can start looking at where we want to go aspirationally toward a more proactive approach to the ITS system. So a lot of the questions that have been brought up here, I agree with you. They're policy questions, especially around, transit priority and those kinds of things, and how we're going to meld this with the level of service and our concurrency policy and all of that. You also provided some rough estimates of the cost of various items. And we all know how volatile the technology is. And so those things are going to change dramatically between now and when we get to the CIP and then when we get to the budget. So I feel like this is a plan that provides us with a good direction. There's been a lot of community engagement involved as well as planning by the staff. And we just have to be, I guess, patient because while we're laying this foundation, it's not going to be, real sexy, as, we say when it comes to infrastructure. Infrastructure is often, especially foundational infrastructure, is not sexy. It isn't, that thing that grabs you. But when we lay that foundation, then down the road, we're going to be able to do some fantastic things because we will have brought the system up to speed. And right now, if you look at those graphs, as I said, we're digging our way out of a big hole, and we have to do that foundational work first. So obviously, very supportive of this. I think the staff did a very thoughtful job, and I agree that we have a lot of decisions to make down the road to make sure that this plan is implemented fully and meets the goals that we've talked about tonight. I just would commend the community to think about the investment that we're going to have to make in this foundational piece before we can start to fly. So thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember DeMichelle. Councilmember Joe, did you have any comments you wanted to share? Okay, thanks. Is there any additional discussion before we call for a vote? Just checking if anybody wants to check back in. The motion is to approve the Intelligent Transportation System Plan. And if there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That carries 7-0. Thank you, Director Moon, for all your work on this and your committee touches. A great job. And staff. Thanks. The next item is committee and regional reports, and let's start with Councilmember Joe.
Thank you very much. First off, the Cascade Water Alliance Board will be meeting on November 15th. I would encourage my fellow council members to watch not necessarily this meeting directly, but the discussion that's going on with the purchasing of the future water from either the city of Tacoma or Seattle. I'm sure Public Works and the members, your representatives, will be giving you some briefings on those issues going forward. The November 1st Public Affairs Committee for Cascade Water Alliance was canceled. We do have a Lodging Tax Advisory Committee meeting at 3 p.m. this Wednesday at Spring Hill Suite on Maple Street. We'll get a budget update, but the more important topic certainly is discussing the funding initiative. We're going to be working on the application for that. As many of you know, it's a $10,000 funding opportunity. Applications are due January 31st, 2024. There are kind of three categories. We want to have support operations of nonprofits that are supporting tourism-related activities and facilities in town, marketing and operations of special events and festivals designed to attract tourists, and the most important one is marketing to visitors from outside the area by an Issaquah business or not-for-profit organization to encourage safe and virtual travel to Issaquah from visitors greater than 50 miles away. So LTAC is Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. We want to encourage heads and beds through this project. So if you know any nonprofits or other organizations that are encouraging tourism, please let them know that application will be coming out soon and is due January 31st. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Duchamp.
Thank you, Mayor Polly. I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you. On Wednesday of this week, which is November 8th, there will be a meeting of the Planning, Development, and Environment Committee. And we have two topics. We have ID 1494, which is diversity of housing type policy regulation, and ID 1541, comprehensive plan update, draft environmental stewardship and climate resilience element. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Polly. On November 14th at 6:30 p.m. here in Council Chambers, the Mobility and Infrastructure Committee will meet, and the agenda has not yet been set, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Martz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sound Cities Association Public Issues Committee will be meeting this Wednesday, November 8th at 7 p.m. It's an online meeting. We're going to be discussing 2024 legislative priorities, Metro Reduced Fare public engagement, King County Climate Crisis Fund proposal, and getting an election roundup, which is always both exciting and a little sad because there's invariably, I would say, 5 or 10% of the members of SCA PIC that thought they were going to get reelected, that don't get reelected, but then they can commiserate with their friends. And but you know, I have to say, and I'm going to be talking to SCA leadership about this. Yet again, no actions, right? So discussion, but historically SCA has a role, or PIC has a role of providing recommendations to the board, and that hasn't been happening lately. So I'm going to get together with David and understand that a little bit better. Council Services, Safety, and Parks Committee will not be meeting this month. We have one potential item that will get moved to December or January. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Deputy Council President.
Thank you. The next meeting of the Eastside Fire and Rescue Board of Directors is this Wednesday, November 4th at 4 p.m., right before our Planning, Development, and Environment Committee. It's usually on Thursdays, but I think because of Veterans Day, it's Wednesday. The agenda includes a review of the agency's legislative agenda, so we'll be bringing that back for council review and feedback before we adopt at the December board meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Council President.
Thank you. The Puget Sound Regional Council Growth Management Policy Board met last Thursday, and we received a reports on 3 topics. The housing monitoring report, which was really interesting, talked a lot about how housing is so much less affordable than it was just a few years ago, primarily because of mortgage rates and just how that impacts who can afford to purchase housing. The second thing was the industrial lands analysis, and then also the regional centers monitoring, which we will continue to look at over the next year. Very important to us, having one of the newest regional centers. And the December meeting was canceled, so the next meeting will be held in 2024. The King County Affordable Housing Committee has our next meeting on November 16th. No agenda has been released at this time. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Council President. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. There is no executive session planned for this evening. Some upcoming community events. It's been mentioned a couple times, but 2023 general election is tomorrow. I want to make sure everybody is creating a plan to vote and help make sure that you can get your ballot back on time. Our drop boxes here at City Hall close at 8 p.m. sharp. You can also, ballots could be postmarked by today as well. So I want to make sure that people know that they need to register to vote by 8 p.m. at the King County Elections Office. And if you have any questions, please reach out. The King County Elections has a phone number, 206-296-VOTE, just for your questions. Newport Neighborhood Council listening session is coming up. Hoping the Newport neighbors can join us at the King County Library Service Center from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. this Thursday. To hear what's happening in the neighborhood, staff and council members will present to help answer questions at this community listening session, and the topics will include transportation and traffic, emergency preparedness, police and safety, and sales tax for transportation. There will also be a Q&A session. Veterans Day services. I invite you all to join the VFW post number 3436 for Veterans Day service this Friday from 11 to 12 at the Issaquah Senior Center. The service will include a performance of Liberty High School's junior ROTC, a flag presentation, be recognizing veterans in attendance, and guest speaker Dave Wagner will share about the Women's Air Force Service pilot. Second Lieutenant Elizabeth Jane Erickson, an Issaquah High School and University of Washington graduate who was killed in training during World War II. Following the service, please swing by Blakely Hall for an open house reception. All veterans and their families and members of the community are invited to come and join. We will have King County Metroflex donating some free transportation between the two services, the Veterans Day service at the Senior Center and the Veterans Day reception in the Highlands. The rides will leave the service event at 12 p.m. and return trips back to the Senior Center will leave the reception event at 1:30. You can learn more at Issaquah's Metroflex site. Issaquah History Museum is having an open house. You heard about that tonight at the Depot, Thursday, November 16th at 7 p.m. You can learn all about the latest programs and plans for the Issaquah History Museum, their collection, Gilman Town Hall, the trolley, the auto freight building, the Army car, guided tours, etc. This event is open to the public, but an RSVP would be appreciated. There's also an Old Town neighborhood meeting coming up with city staff Thursday, November 16th in the Rainier Room at the Issaquah Community Center. Again, to talk about upcoming projects and topics of the Old Town neighborhood. Staff will deliver a short presentation before inviting the public to continue the discussion at topic tables. Please feel free to join us and bring questions and chat with city staff. Projects and topics include Second and Bush Crossing evaluation, traffic calming, stormwater planning and related projects, pedestrian park and the Senior Center Plaza update, neighborhood dog park, the data update related to public safety trends, and traffic enforcement. The Rainier Room is accessible through the main community center entrance or a separate exterior entrance along First Avenue. And last, light up the night. I want to make sure everybody joins the City of Issaquah at 6 p.m. with some special guests next Saturday, November 18th in Old Town from 5 p.m. to, actually that's two Saturdays away, in Old Town from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for a celebratory tree lighting to welcome in winter. All are welcome at this free event. Additional details will be coming out on our website shortly. Going to move into good of the order and see if anybody has any items to share for good of the order. I see Councilmember Joe does.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to make the council aware of an event coming up, the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce holds a regular holiday elected leaders party. This year it'll be on December 12th at the Xfinity store in Bell Square from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. It's a great opportunity to meet and talk to our fellow council members from Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, and other surrounding communities. I would encourage you to consider attending this free event. I think you RSVP through the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce if you're interested. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Council President?
Thank you. Deputy Council President reminded me that I have to take an opportunity to crow for a moment and talk about our pumpkin derby, which, as everyone will remember, the one goal that I had established for our council derby cart this year was that our pumpkin stayed on the cart and continued down together. And so I would like to say that in our fourth derby cart, we have finally accomplished that. 2 out of the 3 races that we did, we made it all the way down. The other one we got stopped up and everything, but I fixed the wheels on that day. But I would like to say we even won one of our races. I will mention that the executive team did beat us twice, so you know there's a little bit of a challenge there for next year. But I would like to thank everyone for helping us achieve that goal, which was very near and dear to all of our hearts. It was also just a wonderful time seeing all of the employees out celebrating and doing all of that. So just wanted to update everyone. Thank you.
It was a good event. I have a couple more I'm just going to add in really quickly. One is there are a couple of us going on Wednesday out to the Snoqualmie Casino as part of a group of elected representatives thanking House and Senate representatives of the state for their continued funding and commitment to completing the Highway 18 project. So very excited about that. And our Sister Cities Commission is working with staff and community members on 3 projects for Moroccan relief for the earthquake. December 2nd, there will be an event at the Pickering Barn, and you will all receive an invitation to it. It is a winter clothing drive that we are coordinating with the mayor of our sister city in Chefchaouen, Morocco. There's also going to be a shipment of some fresh fruit and also computers. So there are 3 different projects coming out over the next couple of months, but it'd be great to see everybody at the December 2nd event. Any other good of the order items? Some upcoming council meetings. November 9th, there's a special city council meeting, which we already talked about, the community listening session for Newport neighborhood, and this will be at the King County Library Service Center on Newport Way. We also talked, oh no, this is the next Monday, November 13th, a special city council meeting followed by a committee of the whole meeting. This is a public hearing at 6:30 about the High Street Collection Development Agreement. Following the special meeting, a committee of the whole will be held, and the anticipated agenda items include Transportation Benefit District, Council Mannix sales tax, and the public outreach outcomes. And another potential item is amending financial management policies. At the November 20th regular City Council meeting, the anticipated agenda items include a public hearing on the 2023-24 mid-biennium budget adjustment and the 2024 property tax levy, a public hearing on the Transportation Benefit District, Council Mannix sales tax, the 2023-24 state legislative agenda, priorities and policy manual update, and new business requests, which was credit card processing fees, cost recovery. Next item on the agenda is the executive session, but as I stated earlier, we won't be having one this evening, so we are adjourned at 9:17. Thank you.